The indent was still warm. That's the part I keep coming back to, not the room itself, not the way the drywall had been cut and reseated so cleanly I'd walked past the seam every day for 3 years without once pressing my hand against it, not the shelf on the far wall, not the cup on the shelf, the indent in the pillow. I pressed my hand into it before I understood what I was doing. It held the shape of a head. It was still warm. I'd broken through the wall at 7:45 in the morning. I was fixing a water stain. There was a brown ring on the drywall in the kitchen about shoulder height, and I'd been meaning to open it up and check the pipe behind it for weeks. I knocked on the drywall to find the stud. The drywall knocked back, not an echo. Not the hollow sound a wall makes when you miss the stud and hit cavity. Something else, a depth. I stood in my kitchen for a long time before I went to get the utility knife. There are things I dismissed over the past 3 years. I need you to understand that first. I need you to understand I'm not someone who panics at sounds in the night. The food thing started maybe 8 months after I moved in. Not dramatic, a jar of peanut butter going faster than it should, half a loaf of bread I couldn't account for. I assumed I was stress eating and forgetting. I started keeping a rough count in my head. The count never matched. I bought more. The smell was harder to explain away. Not a bad smell, not gas, not rot, just warmth. The faint, unmistakable warmth of a room that someone has recently been inside. I noticed it most in the mornings. I'd walk into the kitchen and the air would be different in a way I couldn't name. I told myself it was the house. Old houses hold heat strangely. Old houses smell like the people who used to live in them. I believed that. I wanted to believe that. The sounds I'd been hearing for almost 2 years. Movement on the other side of the bedroom wall. Slow, careful. The kind of sound that stops exactly when you hold your breath to listen for it. I told myself it was the pipes. I told myself it was the neighbor's dog. I told myself it was what living alone sounds like when the house is quiet enough that you can hear yourself thinking. I learned to sleep through it. That took me about 6 months. After that, I didn't hear it anymore. Or I heard it, and I didn't register it as something that required a response. I've been trying to figure out which one is true. I still don't know. Here's what I know now. The room is on the other side of the bedroom wall, 8 feet from where I sleep. Every sound I attributed to pipes. Every night I lay awake listening and then decided I was being irrational. There was someone on the other side. Not a pipe, not a dog, not the house, not anything I have a word for that doesn't make it worse to say out loud. The entrance from his side was through the back of the hallway closet. He'd removed the rear panel, replaced the screws on the closet shelf brackets with magnetic catches. I had opened that closet every single day for 3 years. I'd hung my coat there. I'd looked at those brackets every winter when I was reaching for something on the top shelf. They looked like regular screws. They were not regular screws. The room itself was roughly 6 feet wide and maybe 14 feet long. Insulated. He'd run an extension cord through the wall cavity to tap the kitchen outlet. There was a battery-powered lamp on the shelf beside the cup, a blanket folded at the foot of the bed. Not a sleeping bag. A blanket. The kind you'd find in any house. The ceiling was low enough that you couldn't stand up straight near the far wall. Everything in the room was positioned so that he could. He'd been in this room long enough to know exactly where to stand. There was a small vent in the wall, original construction, covered by a metal grate on my side. I had always assumed it was a dead vent. It was not a dead vent. From inside the room, you could see directly into the kitchen. From inside the room, you could see the table where I eat breakfast. From inside the room, you could see the chair I sit in when I can't sleep. I went outside and stood in the driveway. I needed to be outside. I stood there for a long time. Then I went back inside and called the police. I went back into the room while I was waiting for them. I don't know why I went back in. I think I needed it to still be real. I think part of me believed that if I looked away long enough, the room would stop existing. The notebook was on the shelf beside the lamp. Black cover, spiral bound. I opened it the way you open something you already know you shouldn't. Dates, times, notes. Going back 26 months, just entries, no name at the top, no explanation. Some entries had notes beside the times. Grocery run. Returned in 2 hours, 40 minutes, out until after midnight, Tuesday. Work pattern, leaves 7:15, returns 6 to 7 p.m. I read the first page, then the second. I recognized the pattern before I finished understanding what I was recognizing. These were my absences. He had been documenting my schedule, when I left, how long I was gone, whether I came back alone, whether I came back at all. I turned pages. I was not looking for anything specific. I stopped on November 14th. I don't know what made me stop there. November 14th was the night I got the call that my father had died. 9:20 p.m. I'd sat down at the kitchen table and I hadn't gotten up again until almost 2 in the morning. I hadn't turned on the television. I hadn't called anyone. I just sat there in the dark with my hands flat on the table. The entry for November 14th had no departure time. Because I hadn't left. Below the date, in different ink, darker, like it had been added after, like it was an observation worth noting separately. 2 words. He stayed home. The police searched the house. They confirmed the room. They confirmed the entrance from the closet. They took the notebook. They told me there was no way to determine how long the space had been in use before the earliest dated entry. 26 months was as far back as they could verify. I moved into the house 31 months ago. I've been trying to do the math. I can't make it come out to anything I can hold in my head for more than a few seconds before I have to put it down. They didn't find anyone. He was already gone. They don't know when he left. They don't know if he knew I'd broken through the wall that morning. They don't know how much time passed between the moment I opened that room and the moment he understood it had been opened. I'm still in the house. That's the first thing people ask when I tell this story. They ask why I didn't leave. I don't have an answer that would make sense to someone who hasn't stood in a room like that and understood that leaving doesn't change what the room means. I sealed the entrance to the closet. I replaced the drywall in the kitchen. I removed the vent grate and filled the duct with foam insulation and replaced the cover plate. I sleep with the light on now. Not every night. Most nights. But every night when the house settles. When something shifts in the walls the way old houses shift. I lie there and I know it's the wood contracting in the cold. I know it's the pipes. I know there is no one on the other side of that wall. I know all of that. And I still count. I still count the seconds between the sound and the silence. I count them the way you count when you're waiting to find out if the thing you heard was real. I still don't know how long he knew I knew. I don't know if he was still in the room when I pressed my hand into the pillow. I don't know if the warmth I felt was the room. I don't know if it was him. If you want more stories like this, subscribe to Lore Machina. We'll see you in the dark.